Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So in the last episode, I spoke about personas, right? So I did briefly mention about what personas are, and I touched upon Service Cloud and Sales Cloud personas briefly, right? Though what I've covered may not be sufficient for to understand an entire Sales Cloud or Service Cloud persona, but I'll just give you an overview of what it means from a different cloud perspective. The same I wanted to talk about from a experience cloud perspective, right? Because obviously, when if you have ever worked with experience cloud, then you will know that in experience cloud you could have different personas, right? The first persona could be people who's logging into your site, could be your customer, could be your partners, right? To view different sort of information, could be they wanted to say log a case, or wanted to view a knowledge base article, or they wanted to perhaps apply for, say, insurance. There are different things you can do, right? So those group or those kind of personas, I would say, as a site user personas, right? And then we have a site administrator who look after the site, sometimes build the site, or responsible for adding functionality to the site. You can also call it as a site builder, but let's call it as a site administrator, right? Let's talk about just two personas here from a marketing cloud perspective. Sorry, from an experience cloud perspective. So the site administrator, like I said, was responsible for adding functionality, um, giving access to the user, and other kind of stuff, right? And the site users are someone who logs into your site, do basic stuff, right? Now, you must be wondering why all this is so important, right? Why do you even care? Well, if you look at it from a licensing perspective, right? Understanding a personas is very important. The first thing, right? Because you know if you know what kind of users you're gonna get and what kind of personas they are and what kind of functionalities they're gonna be using, so it will help you as an architect or as a business owner or a product owner, whatever name you wanted to call it. Right? Let's keep it as an architect, right? To help guide the decision regarding the number of licenses you need to have, right? So that's a very important factor, right? The personas are very important. The second thing, the sharing model, right? If you wanted to share a record or yeah, share a record, then or if you wanted to build a sharing rule, you need to have a persona into consideration, who you wanted to share and what records you wanted to share, right? So, for instance, you have a sales team, right? You have a sales, say, senior sales guys, right, who can have access to the record of the junior sales guys, so that they can, do the approval and other kind of stuff. But the junior sales guy will not have any approval, sorry, will not have access to any information regarding the sales opportunities associated with the senior sales guy. But they can have access to the finance information, right, in terms of price book and other kind of stuff. So how are you going to build a security model if you don't understand the personas, right? That's why it's very important. And also, one thing I just wanted to mention, all right, that if you're designing a solution, right, it's always good to bring your personas or people into the discussion. For instance, right, if you're building a solution, right, if you're building a functionality associate, and that functionality going to target, let's say, a sales team. So it's good to bring a few people from a sales rep, senior sales rep, a few people from junior sales rep, maybe two, maybe three, depending on your team strength, and then work with them the solution, because at the end of the day, right, they're the one going to use it, right? And it's very important to understand that what functionality they are after, and based on that, you can provide them with the right license or permissions or whatever, right? I mean, I'm not really going to get into the details of the licensing stuff, so that's why I'm really not pushing about it. But just to remember that it will help with the licensing decision, the personas. Okay. So, Trailhead cover a lot of things. I mean, you can go through it if you like. They have a nice thingy here. You know, um, how do you make smarter with personas? We already talked about licensing and features, right? And then the user engagement. Now, I have seen a couple of projects, right, where from my own personal experience, that where personas or people associated with that persona groups, right, are not really consulted before building a functionality. So when the functionality got built, right, they were pretty annoyed. The reason why they were annoyed, they said, this is not exactly what we wanted. We have different ways of doing things, right? Um, it's important that you involve the people who are actually going to use the functionality. That is very important because your personas could be your customers, right? For instance, let's take an example of Experience Cloud, right? And how do you want the user to log in? Do you want to give a social login, or would you like to give uh, would you like a site administrator to create the login for you, or like a self-register? Or yeah, if you want someone else to create the login for them, right? Like for instance, sometimes they do in the community portal of when dealing with the partners, right? So do you want that option, or would you like to have different ways, right? So it's important to understand that, right? Personas plays an important role in this kind of decision making. And if you kind of avoid it, then I'm afraid that what's going to happen, you will end up in having users who are not going to use the functionality. And that's going to defeat the whole purpose of building it at first place, right? Now, I, like I said, right, the couple of times I've seen that, the personas are not really consulted, and, it's a kind of a lost opportunity, I would say. And the business wonder why the user adoption rate is quite low, right? This is one of the reasons, because you never involve the user to begin with. And if the stakeholders think that they know what a user wants, that's exactly where they get stuff wrong, right? So based on my personal experience, right, personas plays a very important role, not only in Salesforce ecosystem, but for that matter, you take an example of AWS or Azure or any ERP system, right? Personas will play an important role. You ask an SAP guy or a SAP architect, uh, he or she will tell you that, hey, yeah, personas plays an important role. So that's exactly what I was talking about. So that being said, that's all I wanted to cover. I hope the personas are clear to you guys. Personas is a tiny topic, but yet it's very important, right? So if you have time, I would highly encourage you to go through the trailhead. Trailer is a pretty amazing place, right? Or if you have any questions, just put your questions in the chat section, in the comment, right, in the comment section. Um, and then I will reply to that, right, whenever I get some time. So at the end of the day, I want this like a user interaction kind of thing, so that if you have any questions, I can help you guys and help you get certified. That's the whole point of doing this, right? So that being said, hope you guys have an amazing Thursday. Adios.